Chapter 25 Heroes Rising. For the next 5 days, Izuku has been teaching his odd family how to properly use their new quirks. On the first day, he used 𝓢𝓨𝓜𝓑𝓛 to trap them in an illusion so he could teach their minds how to use their individual quirks, so when they go back to reality, they would already have a feel for their new quirks. The added benefit of 𝓢𝓢𝓜 is that he could control how long they could be trapped within the illusion. So for the first 3 hours they were trapped in 𝓢𝓢𝓜, it would be 30 years. When it came to Aries' training, he would only keep her in the illusion for 3 months at a time, so she would still keep her childish innocence. While in the illusion, he would teach her basic school subjects so she could catch up on her missed education, and luckily for Izuku, she was a fast learner. The other thing he did in the illusion was look through her memories while he kept Aries busy with training, most of the memories filled with overhaul, disassembling and reassembling her over and over again. He counted that he killed her 8,532 times from when he got his hands on her until the day before he rescued her. This set Izuku off, and he promised to go back to overhaul and increase the level of torture within infinite 𝓢𝓢𝓜 and give him life extension so he would continue suffering for at most a few centuries until he died from old age. Within the next 5 days, Izuku spent 3 hours a day cramming 150 years of training into Inko, Kana, Rumi, Nizu, Tenko, Tuya, Himiko, Twice, Spinner, Oboro, and Aizawa. When it came to Aries' education and training, he spent 15 months getting her to 3rd-year middle school level, making her too smart for her age and too strong because she found more creative ways to use her quirks. Now, when it came to actually training their quirks in reality, they were nearly unstoppable. Inko could use her psionics to lift objects the size of Island with little to no difficulty, and her medical skills are only second to Izuku since he himself is technically a doctor judging by his degrees and PhDs. Since she has 2 quirks that could scan and identify a problem, combine that with her medical skills with psionics, then she is a deadly doctor. Nizu's training was more focused on his beast mode quirk since Izuku evolved his original quirk. He trained him in basic hand-to-hand combat that mostly relied on animal instincts and smart decision-making. The hacking quirk gave him free rein to hack into every high-tech security system around the world without leaving a trace of him even hacking it in the first place, but the only place he couldn't hack was North Korea, which he found strange and would look into it after he collected as much data as he can. Kana's training wasn't really that different to what she's normally used to. She mostly focused on hand-to-hand combat and her marksmanship. Rumi, on the other hand, was a slugfest whenever they trained. Her proficiency with her quirk is nearly unmatched. She even had to create a different moveset for the second form of her quirk, which she called Lunar Eclipse. This consisted of using esoteric multi-strike and combo empowerment that put her on the level of All Might in his prime multiplied by 10. Tenko's training mostly focused on hand-to-hand combat because of his added strength, but they did focus on his evolved decay, and combined with damage amplification made the rate of decay instantaneous. The only sad part about his decay is when he reconstructs something living, it does not come back to life. Aizawa's training was a bit more complicated because he had to teach him how to use 𝓢𝓢𝓜𝓜 to trap opponents and vertigo inducement to disorientate them to the point of falling unconscious. But the most interesting part of the training is when he taught him how to use appendage generation, which he could sprout out eyes anywhere he wants, and the best part is that his erasure can still work through them, giving complete control over the battlefield. Oboro's training was just teaching him how to locate people almost anywhere, but also how to teach him on controlling his smoke quirk, which when he added it to Warp Gate allowed him to increase the size of the gate to swallow up the USJ. Himiko's training was on the ways of blood. Since her blood was both poisonous and flammable, it made her the most dangerous person you'd have to face. The reason he didn't give her a regeneration quirk was so she could give herself a cut to draw blood before it healed on its own, and she would heal herself through the healing quirk. Hand-to-hand combat was mostly down with Kana because both of them had blade construction and they could teach each other different ways to use knives in their movesets. But the most interesting thing about her evolved quirk that Izuku and Himiko found out was that when she transforms into someone, she could use that person's quirk as long as she understood how it works. The only exception was All for One and One for All because those 2 quirks are classified as stockpile quirks. Spinners would just join Kana and Toga for training because those 2 outclass him in hand-to-hand combat and blade works, even though he had the same training as them in 𝓢𝓢𝓜𝓜. Twice training was more of getting him used to cloning himself again. His mental health has been restored to before he broke down, but he was still wary of that happening. Twice created a move called 𝓢𝓨𝓜𝓑𝓛's Parade that allowed him to create thousands of clones that topple almost anyone, but he also created a second variant that's called 𝓢𝓨𝓜𝓛's Festival, which allowed him to create hundreds of thousands of clones that could overrun countries. He trained the doppelganger quirk for limited moves that he would use on short notice and created a move that creates clones that could stockpile attacks that would harm him and combined with multiplier makes them walking AC 1-30s. He calls the move Armageddon. Tuya was a whole different story. First off is that he was a natural when it came to control since he has an intuitive mind that allowed him to subconsciously copy movements with him only seeing it once. He copied Endeavor's moveset to a T, and even improved on them since he can now manipulate his blue flames instead of shooting them out and controlling them through sheer will. He created an improved moveset called 𝓢𝓚𝓚𝓛, which combines blue fire and wind manipulation. Each move is deadlier than the last and add in heavy payload which makes him a walking nuke. His ice training was mostly down by mimicking how Shoto controls his ice and even improved on how to properly use it. He even found a way to combine his blue fire and ice to create cold flames. The cold flames could flash freeze anything in an instant, making him more powerful than he already was. The last and certainly not least was Aries' training. He mostly just taught her self-defense so she could protect herself from any threat that isn't too dangerous. They even came up with combo moves they could use if the situation called for it. Aries would create a ring of energy where Izuku could add any quirk to the energy to make it very destructive to the point of destroying city blocks. But that wasn't the only thing he taught her, how to have fun with her quirks with different combinations, but the only thing that bothered him was that he still couldn't make her smile no matter what he tried, so he had to try to figure out something that might work. When it came to Izuku's own training, he mainly focused on temporal rewind, but there were many risks when it came to it. Mostly it was due to rewinding time itself would cause many problems, but he could still use the other functions of temporal rewind like age reversal, temporal healing, and reversing time in a specific area, but the main reason he wouldn't reverse time unless it was an emergency was there are theories that explain what would happen if you traveled back in time to a specific point. Time works in a bizarre way. When traveling back to a specific point in time where you change one thing in the past that it will affect the future for the better or worse. When you change the past it won't immediately affect the future, but instead it would create a second timeline where that change in the past would affect that future, making it your present. There's a theory where each decision you make affects your timeline. Each decision is a split in time that leads to another split and another until you reach the end of your own timeline. So if you were to go back in time to change a decision you made to lead you to the future you came from, there's a high chance that future would be erased and you would be trapped in the changed timeline, and if you were to try to go back in time again to fix that change, it would cause an infinite loop that would destroy and recreate the timeline for all eternity unless there was a change in the loop that could break you out of it. This is just my own theory of how time travel works because, believe it or not, I'm a nerd when it comes to time stuff, even though it's the most confusing thing to learn, which I both love and hate. P.S. Izuku would be trapped in the past because he doesn't have a quirk that could fast-forward time yet. Once everyone's training was complete, they were finally ready to leave for the trip to 𝓙𝓈 Island, which they would be taking by cruise ship that Izuku owns. It was early morning within the school parking lot. Awaiting Class 1A was waiting with their luggage for the buses to arrive. Waiting with them was Aizawa with Oboro talking with both present Mike and Midnight. During the 5 days of training, Nizu had the opportunity to inform his staff of Oboro's rise and the former League of Villains being under the care of Izuku. Some were a bit skeptical with the idea of having them living on campus, which was understandable, but they've seen how they have changed when Izuku looked after them, so they are willing to give them a chance. Unfortunately, Yagi wasn't present at the time because he was discussing One for All with Gran Torino and Night Eye, trying to figure out why it wasn't allowing Bakugo access, so he doesn't know of the former league being reformed. Aizawa was in his sleeping bag when he saw the buses enter the parking lot, so he got out and addressed the class. Aizawa. Alright everyone, the buses are here, so load up you things and gather around because I need to talk to you guys before you go. The class followed their teacher's orders and loaded their luggage on the bus. They did notice another bus there though. It was smaller and looked much more comfortable than their ones they are boarding, so they wondered who else will be coming with them. Once everyone was done loading, they moved back to their teacher, who was glaring at the other two adults because they were being too loud. Before Aizawa could say anything, Ida shot his hand up and asked a question. Ida, Mr. Aizawa, why there a second bus here? Are other people going to join the trip? Aizawa. I was getting to that, but yes. A few guests will be attending the trip, but they will only be observing you guys until the end of the week, and they may interfere if something is too much for you all to handle. Ida. I see. May I ask who will be joining us? Just before Aizawa was about to enter, a green warp gate opened up, making the class tense up a bit, because they knew whose gate this is. The first to step out of the gate was Nizu in his tiny suit sitting atop Inko's shoulder. Followed behind him was Izuku with Eri on top of his shoulders playing with his halo. The next was Rumi and 𝓍𝓏, who were wearing casual wear, but the class was alarmed to see the former league walk out with a lot of luggage on them, which made all of them go on the defensive. But only Todoroki didn't enter a defensive stance because he was staring at the white-haired, blue-eyed villain. Nizu. Good morning, Class 1A. I see you're all as sharp as ever. Bakugo was the first to speak up while popping explosions in his palms. Bakugo? Nizu, you damn rat. Why is the league here with that damn Deku? His sudden outburst had spooked Eri a bit, which made her shake in fear. This did not only make Izuku mad but the whole Odd family mad, and in an instant, Bakugo had a knife aimed at his neck. Another at his heart. Blue fire was blazing in front of his face. A barrel of a rifle aimed at the back of his head. Clones surrounded him with fists raised ready to punch. A hand on his back to slowly emitted a dull gray aura, and a foot mere inches from his groin. Tenko, Himiko, Tuya, Spinner, Twice, 𝓍𝓏 and Rumi were ready to end Bakugo's life the moment he tried anything. He was shocked and scared because he couldn't even see them move. The class were also shocked and looked at their teachers for help, but Nizu had his claws bared with a dangerous glint in his eyes. Inko had floating rocks that were shaped into needles trained on Bakugo. Oboro had smoke being emitted from his hands that were ready to fire, and Aizawa's eyes were burning bright red, promising death to whoever he faced. Izuku had Aries in his hands trying to calm her down so she stopped shaking. The thing is, even though Eri is as smart as a third-year middle schooler, the trauma she had was still there, and she would get spooked by and loud sounds that sound threatening. Izuku? It's okay, sweetie. Nothing's going to hurt you, it's just that someone doesn't know how to keep their voice down when kids are around. He says that while glaring at the trembling Bakugo, who looked like he wanted to piss himself. He looked back at Eri and saw she was also staring at Bakugo in recognition and disgust, which intrigued him as to why. Eri. He was their WNO overhaul took me back. Izuku. I know, sweetie. I've heard he tried to save you, but Lemillion stopped him because he thought it would be a good idea to let him take you. Eri only nodded while she managed to stop shaking. The Odd family backed away from Bakugo before sending him a warning through a collective glare that sent shivers down his spine. Nizu. Now that's over with, but young Bakugo, I would suggest you keep your voice down in front of my nephew's daughter. I believe you know the reason why. Bakugo, why yes, sir. He said in a shaky voice. It was clear he was scared for his life after that close call. Uraraka moved in to help him calm down, which did a little, but he was still visibly shaken. Nizu. Now that I have your attention, I'm sure all of you are wondering why the League of Villains along with Izuku, his daughter and girlfriends, are here, correct? They all nodded their heads. Nizu, to put it simply, the League are in the process of being reformed and will be under the guardianship of Izuku. Ida. But sir, is this even a good idea? What if they somehow betray us? Nizu. I can guarantee you they will not betray the trust we put in them. I've spent the last 5 days with them, and I will say they are changing for the better. Ida. I understand, sir. Nizu. Good. Now Ms. Tsutsumi and Usajiyama will be present as well to act as overseers of your time on Nabu Island, along with Izuku and his daughter Eri. The glass looked over at Izuku as he held Eri close to him while she was slightly glaring at Bakugo. They don't know why she is, but at the moment they don't have the time for that. Aizawa. Now remember, while you're at that island you will be all alone, meaning you'll be experiencing firsthand on how pros operate. If there's a problem, make sure to deal with it logically and accordingly. Izuku and the rest will only step in if you can't handle something, understood? Class 1A. Yes, sir. Aizawa. Good. Now get on the bus because it's going to take you an hour max to reach Shimizu port. The class filtered in the bus and waited for the driver to take off, while Izuku and the rest loaded their luggage in their smaller bus and said their goodbyes before getting on. Nizu. Remember, nephew, if something happens while you're there, make sure to take care of it and try to keep the island safe. Izuku. Got it, uncle, we'll see you all in a week. They filtered into the bus with Twice taking the driver's seat and the rest sitting in their preferred seats. Tuya was in the front with Twice, Spinner took the back seat with Tenko, Himiko, 𝓍𝓏 and Rumi all sat with each other, and lastly Izuku and Eri were sitting in the front behind the driver. The class's bus began to move with them following behind and making their way out of UA's parking lot and onto the road leading to the highway that lead to Shimizu port. About a quarter of the way there, Izuku got Eri's attention with a question. Itsuku. Eri. Eri. Yes, Papa? Izuku. When we were at the parking lot, you were glaring at 𝓎𝓈. Why? Eri seemed to hesitate a bit before answering. Eri, 𝓎𝓔, the one who branded you, isn't he? Izuku. So you figured it out, you really have gotten smart, but yes, he's the one who done that to me. Eri. Then why isn't he arrested? Izuku. A blonde skeleton bailed him out.
Eri, blonde skeleton.
Izuku. All Might, or now known as Toshinori Yagi. Eri gained a somewhat angered expression and was about to say something, but Tenko beat her to it. Tenko. All Might bailed him out, why? Izuku. Because he gave Bakugo his quirk. Rumi. Wait, he gave it to him? Izuku. Right, most of you don't know this. You all know my quirk is an advanced version of my father's fight. Tuya, right? Izuku. Well, Yagi's quirk is quite similar in nature, and what I mean is that his quirk is transferable. Rumi. Really? So wait, if All Might received it from someone else, then what is his quirk? Izuku. He was born quirkless, but was give his quirk by Tenko's grandmother.
Tenko, ex-grandmother.
Himiko. What's the name of the quirk? Izuku. One for all. That's what my father's been trying to take back ever since it was created over 200 years ago. Spinner. It's that old? Izuku. Yeah, the quirk would stockpile energy with every generation until it reaches singularity, and when it does, it grants the user the previous user's quirks as well as the vestiges. Twice. So All Might gave such a powerful quirk to an explosive psychopath. Izuku. Yup. Tuya. What did he see in him to even do that? Izuku. Power. Yagi is clouded by power. I'm guessing he didn't have a great life when growing up because of his quirkless status, being looked down upon just because you're different. Can't say I blame him for the way he thinks, because I've suffered the same fate for 14 years of my life, and when suddenly gaining power, it starts to corrupt you until you become the same people that look down on you. Rumi. That's messed up. Izuku. It is. You now, when I gained my quirk, I could have turned into a villain then and there just because All Might broke my dream of being a hero. Kana. You would have brought the world to its knees if that happened. Tenko. She's not lying. Even father couldn't have stopped you. Izuku. True, and you know the funny thing is that in a different universe, there's a high chance that I became a villain and either ruled over the world or destroyed it to create a better one. Tuya. So Tenko's original plan? Izuku. Yeah. Twice. Thank God you turned out well. Everyone expect Izuku and Eri. Amen. Izuku. Sigh. Rumi. So tell me why your pops wanted OFA back. Izuku. He wanted to talk to his brother to apologize for locking him away from the world. Because of that, it started a war that spanned centuries. The war between one for all and all for one, caused by a simple mistake. Rumi. That's sad, but are you going to try to take the quirk back? Izuku. I have to. Right now I have advanced copy the quirk that created a link between the two quirks, but I need the actual quirk for it to be fully complete. Rumi. So when are you going to get it? Izuku. Probably within the next month. Then I'd have to bring Yagi too, so the past users can have a talk about his change after he received the quirk. Tuya. So the blonde oaf is fudged. Izuku. Fudged is putting it lightly, but yeah. Tenko. I honestly want to see that, but I don't want to see Nana Shimura. Izuku. She's probably going to try and attack me and Dad the moment she sees us. Twice. So on site? Izuku. On site. Tenko. Good luck, brother, and Godspeed. Tuya. Nerd. Tenko. HEY. This caused the rest of the passengers to burst out into laughter, embarrassing Tenko as he sheepishly looked outside the window to try and protect his pride, but Izuku noticed Eri still wasn't smiling, only glowing softly to show that she was also amused by the two's playful banter. This saddened Izuku but also solidified his resolve. Izuku. I'll make you smile again, Snowball, and that's a promise. They spent the rest of the remaining time discussing what they would be doing when they arrived at the island. Himiko suggested sightseeing first so they get used to the layout of the island. Spinner wanted to go fishing for tuna, with Twice agreeing with him. Tuya surprisingly wanted to go to the beach to just enjoy the sun and to also give Tenko a tan because he was extremely pale. Kana wanted to explore the ruined castle that was on the island next to mainland. Rumi just wanted to fight Izuku, which they agreed to do last before just enjoying the rest of the week there. After an hour of driving, they made it to Shimizu, where a cruise ship was already waiting with crewman working about. Class 1A and the Odd family got off their buses and approached the ship, The class still felt uneasy with the former league coming with them, but they had no choice but to trust Nizu's judgment. A few seconds later, the captain of the floating vessel walked down the bridge that led from the ship and went to greet them all, but gave much more respect to Izuku. "Captain, good morning UA students and good morning Mr. Midoriya and co. It's a pleasure to see you again," the captain said respectfully as he also bowed respectfully to Izuku, which intrigued the students and the rest. "Izuku, there's no need to be formal with me, Captain. Just call me Izuku, Captain." "Sorry, sir. Force of habit, and it's not every day your boss would be traveling by boat instead of teleporting around." "Izuku, don't worry about it. Besides, I have more people here that I would like to experience being on a cruise ship, especially my daughter." "Captain, you already have a daughter? Well, me and the crew would like to congratulate on the new addition to your family. So who's the lucky lady?" "Izuku, calm down, Captain. I didn't get anyone pregnant yet. I adopted her," he says while gesturing to Eri, who was hiding behind his leg, but he didn't notice Kana and Rumi blushing behind him because of implying he would eventually get them pregnant with his seed. "Captain, my mistake, sir." "Izuku, it's fine. So is everything ready?" "Captain, everything is fully functional. We just need to load up your luggage and yourselves, then we can set sail, but there is a problem regarding one of the ingredients you requested." "Izuku, which one?" "Captain, we couldn't get our hands on the tuna you were looking for. Turns out they are heading south because of the changing weather." "Izuku, it's fine. And since we're also heading south, we might have a chance to catch some on the way to the island." "Captain, but we don't have any functioning fishing gear at the moment." "Izuku, don't worry. I'll have that handled." "Captain, all right, sir. Well, let me get my men to collect you luggage so we can set sail. You all just board the ship." "Izuku, thanks, Captain. All right, everyone, all aboard." The class was the first on the vessel, followed by the rest. The ship was very spacious and had a lot of room for activities like games you would find on regular cruise ships and stuff. The class spread out to explore the place while Izuku and the rest went to the foremast or the front of the ship where there were seats already prepared for them. They all sat down in the comfy seats and relaxed. But Rumi had a question regarding the ship. "Rumi, hey Izuku, how do you know the captain?" "Izuku, I'm his boss since I own the port and the ship's docked here." "Rumi, of course you do. Tenko, how rich are you?" "Izuku, I honestly lost count at this point in time." Once everything was settled with all the luggage loaded and the students situated in their preferred seating, the captain's voice blared to life through the comms on the ship. "Captain, comms all right people. Please hold on until we fully breach the docks and are in open water." The cruise ship let out a loud blowhorn that signaled that they were setting sail. The ones at the front got a clear view their departure. They could see the island they'll be going to in the distance a few kilometers away. They all feel the rush of ocean air breeze by them with a salty sting, and a few minutes later, they are out of Shimizu port and are heading south to Nabu Island. "Captain, comms all right. The trip to the island will take half the day, so try to relax until then." Once the captain announced how long it would take to get to the island, the class started conversing with one another about what type of island they'll be protecting, and if they need to appoint a representative to talk to the locals whole they help out throughout the island. With the odd family, they were just lounging around enjoying the sound of the ocean when someone made themselves known. "Shoto, is it fine if I join you guys?" They looked over to him and saw he was still tense around them but was not showing any hostility towards them, just curiosity. Izuku looked over to Tuya, who was looking at Shoto with a look of brotherly love. So he looked back and told him he could join them. Shoto sat near Tuya, who still had his eyes on him until he asked him a question that's been bothering him. "Shoto, are you Tuya by any chance?" "Tuya, and if I was, what would you do?" Shoto stayed quiet for a bit, clearly thinking of a proper response before just looking at him with some tears leaking out of his eyes. "Shoto, I would want to hug my older brother because I missed him." Tuya looked into his to see if he had any of Endeavor's malice but found none, which he was glad to see. So he stood up and walked over to him and gave him a bone-crushing brotherly hug. "Tuya, I missed you too, Shoto." Shoto hugged Tuya tightly, afraid if he let him go he would disappear. The rest looked at them with smiles, seeing that the two brothers did not have any hate towards one another. A few minutes of hugging and crying later, they sat down and decided to catch up. "Shoto, so, where were you all this time?" "Tuya, roaming the streets trying to stay alive and also keeping tabs on Fuyumi, Natsuo and Mom, seeing if they're all right. 𝓎𝓤, I haven't seen Mom in a while. 𝓎𝓤 made sure we couldn't see her. 𝓎𝓤, I know, and I'm gonna set you guys free and make him pay, or he will, because he has more of a concrete plan than mine's, he says while pointing over to Izuku, who was staring off into space with Eri taking a nap on his lap. 𝓎𝓤, what kind of plan does he have? 𝓎𝓤, a complicated one, even I don't understand, but I know it will work, just have to trust the guy. 𝓎𝓤, I see. 𝓎𝓤, so how's school, got a girlfriend yet? 𝓎𝓤, school's fine, and no, I don't have a girlfriend yet, but I think Momo has a crush on me. 𝓎𝓤, that Yaoyorozu girl? 𝓎𝓤, yeah. 𝓎𝓤, well, she looks like a kind one, but she has that snobbish attitude to her, you know? 𝓎𝓤, I do, but she is trying to change. 𝓎𝓤, at least, so anything new with your quirk training? 𝓎𝓤, I'm still working on control of my fire, but I'm getting there, and I'm also working on a move to combine my fire and ice to create a new kind of power. 𝓎𝓤, what do you call this new power? 𝓎𝓤, phosphor, it could give me flames that could flash freeze anything in an instant. 𝓎𝓤, cool, but you're kinda behind by a lot since I've already mastered that new power you call phosphor. 𝓎𝓤, what do you mean you mastered it? You only have your fire. 𝓎𝓤, not anymore. He says while presenting his hand, and frost started to build up and he shot it into the hair to create snowflakes. 𝓎𝓤's eyes widened when he saw the ice, but he was even more shocked to see him send out a gust of wind afterwards. 𝓬, see. 𝓎𝓤, how? 𝓬, you can thank Izuku for that. He gave me an ice and wind quirk to help me out with my fire, and I can tell you that right now I'm stronger than 𝓎𝓤 by a large gap. 𝓎𝓤 was left speechless. His older brother now had an ice quirk like him and an additional one to help out. He looked over to Izuku, who just gave him a thumbs up while still spacing out. 𝓬, I could teach you how to master that new power you were talking about. 𝓎𝓤, you would? 𝓬, yeah, what kind of brother would I be if I didn't teach my little brother how to be as awesome as me? Tenko, there's nothing awesome about you, Scarface. 𝓬, oh, shut it, Krusty. 𝓎𝓤 just watched the two go back and forth with their banter. He looked over to the rest and saw that they were used to their playful arguing. He couldn't help but smile, knowing that his brother found people he could call his family. They were about halfway there when the captain's voice came on the comms again. Captain, comm sir, we've caught up to the school of tuna. If you want the fish, now is your chance. Upon hearing that, Izuku zoned back in and looked over at Spinner and Twice. Izuku, you guys up for some fishing? Twice and Spinner. Heck yeah. Izuku, good, because he got a lot of people to feed. Eri, can I watch? Izuku, sure. Just need you to wear something more seaworthy. He placed a hand on her clothes and activated matter creation to create a little sailor suit for her. It matched the crew members in color, but he did add some extra stuff like gloves, boots, and a life jacket just in case. He also created some fishing gear for Twice and Spinner gear and watched them run to the railing, hook some bait to their rods, and cast them into the ocean. Izuku grabbed Eri and put her on her shoulders, then walked over to the two wannabe fishermen. He used X-ray to see through the ocean and saw a large school of tuna avoiding the weight the two cast, but he also saw something bizarre with one of the fish, so he looked even further with absolute vision. King tuna. Gender male. Condition, calm. Health, normal. Blood type, fish. Occupation, king tuna. Affiliation, Pacific bluefin. Quirk, sentient control user has power over sentient life forms. They can command any sentient being to carry out any task, no matter how unwilling the victim's is. Izuku, an animal with a quirk. I know that it's possible, but it's still weird to see another animal besides Uncle to have a quirk, let alone one that can control other beings. He continued to observe the fish coordinating the other tuna to avoid the bait that Spinner and Twice laid out, which made them a bit irritated. He watched them struggle for the next hour with them both, let him out a frustrated shout. Twice and Spinner. These fish aren't biting. Izuku. That's because there's a king tuna controlling them. Twice and Spinner. King tuna? Izuku. It's literally a king amongst tuna, and we're lucky because you could only see these kinds of fish once a year. Spinner. So the other tuna are listening to this king tuna? Izuku. Not listening, they're being controlled by the king because of its quirk. Twice. Really, it's been a while since I've seen an animal with a quirk. Beside 𝓎𝓠, the other animal with a quirk I've seen was a tortoise that lived an old lady just across the street from where I used to live. It had an immortality quirk. Spinner. Geez. How old is this tortoise? Twice. Last I checked, it was around 150 years old and it hasn't aged a day since. 𝓢𝓐𝓡. That's interesting to hear. I might go visit and copy it if the lady allows it. Twice. I think it would be better if you took it because the lady is in her 80s and she wishes to go with her tortoise, and I can tell the tortoise feels the same way. 𝓢𝓐𝓡. Huh. I see what I can do when we get back. But for now I'm going to trap that king tuna. Eri. How? 𝓢𝓐𝓡. Just watch. 𝓢𝓐𝓡 put Eri down and motioned for Twice and Spinner to move back a bit. The rest of the crew along with its passengers moved to the foremast to see what was going on. 𝓢𝓐𝓡 stood still and breathed in and out. A blue flowing glow started to emit from his body, and they could feel the power radiating off of him. He looked out in front of him, targeting the school of tuna, and activated water manipulation to form a giant sphere underwater, trapping the tuna. He raised his hands with a great amount of force, and a second later a sphere of ocean water rises up from the sea. The size trumps the cruise ship by double his own size, and within the sphere they could see sea life swimming around without a care in the world. The people watching were in awe of the spectacle, especially with the light of the sun illuminating the sphere, making it almost translucent and giving them a clear view of all the different species of fish. They noticed the school of fish 𝓢𝓐𝓡 was talking about and found them creating a protective dome of tuna protecting the king tuna. 𝓢𝓐𝓡 used the sub-function of sound manipulation to talk to the fish. 𝓢𝓐𝓡. So you're using your own species to protect yourself instead of protecting them? How pathetic. The king took offense to this and rushed out of the dome of tuna and made a beeline for 𝓢𝓐𝓡. He just watched as the fish broke through the sphere's surface and tried to skewer him with its sharp bill. 𝓢𝓐𝓡 only held out his hand and caught the flying fish with no effort at all. If a fish could show facial expression, then the king would show shock. 𝓢𝓐𝓡. You made a mistake when trying to attack me outside of your own environment. Now you're just a helpless fish without pawns to serve you. The king was angered to be tricked so easily by this air-breathing mammal. It looked around and saw Eri. It tried to use its quirk on her, but... 𝓢𝓐𝓡. I won't allow you to control my daughter if it's the last thing you do, and you won't be needing this for where you going. Sentient control taken. Quirk synergy. Sentient control plus hive mind equals subordination manipulation. Once he took its quirk, he placed a fist on its head, where claws came out of his knuckles to kill the fish with a quirk strike to the brain. The fish went limp. He kept it floating in the air before turning back to the floating sphere of water. 𝓢𝓐𝓡. You are all free to do as you wish without being controlled by another. The tuna looked at him with fishy eyes. He sweat dropped at this and just sent them back to the sea and watched them still stay together but were more of a school than slaves. Spinner and Twice came up and stood next to him while looking out the ocean. They looked at him with blank faces. Spinner and Twice. Do you seriously save a school of tuna? 𝓢𝓐𝓡. Yes I did. Spinner and Twice. Of course you did. 𝓢𝓐𝓡. Anyway, I got us lunch. He looked back at the floating tuna and upon closer inspection he realized that the fish was 10 feet long and weighed around 680 kilograms or 1,500 pounds to be exact. This was fish would feed them for the rest of the day and they would still have leftovers. Just roll with it. In the world of quirks, I'm sure animals are much bigger than today's ones. The captain came down to the foremast and he was slack-jawed to see the size if the fish. Captain. My God. This fish could feed everyone here and then some. 𝓢𝓐𝓡. I know, which is why you will keep the leftovers since we won't need them once we make land. Think of it as a parting gift until we meet again. Captain. Are you sure, sir? 𝓢𝓐𝓡. Yeah, just trying to show my employees that I care. The captain bowed deeply. Captain. You are too kind, sir. Me and my men appreciate the kind gesture. 𝓢𝓐𝓡. Don't mention it, now I gotta prepare this thing. They watch as he produced a large cleaver and skillfully chopped up the fish into multiple sections. He didn't waste any of the fish because he learned from an old chef that goes by Blackleg that a chef never wastes a single piece of meat they use and must use all of it no matter how small. So after 5 minutes of skillful cutting he had pounds upon pounds of tuna. He created a large cooler box to keep all the extra meat for the crew and only left the meat he was about to cook. 𝓢𝓐𝓡. Captain, can you direct me to the kitchen of the ship? Captain, right away, sir. Izuku followed the captain to the middle of the ship where there was an open kitchen that had everything he would need. His odd family followed along since it was a spectacle to see him cook. The class was curious on what he would cook, so they also came to watch. Izuku set the meat down and looked over the ingredients that he requested, all of the spices, vegetables, fruits, and once he was sure everything was there, he got to work. He created a clone that would man the stove. It pulled out pans and skillets out of nowhere, threw them on the stove and turned up the heat. The original was mixing spices and cutting vegetables into bit-sized pieces and threw them at the clone, which caught them and threw them in the pan to let them cook. The fish would be used at the end, so they need to prepare the important ingredients first. Everyone watched in amazement at how fluid he was when working with food, and some were a bit jealous of his skill, mainly Bakugo, who tried to yell but received glares from the family that shut him up immediately. It took around an hour for Izuku to finish cooking up everything and served it to everyone present.
Izuku, bon appétit.
He said while also grabbing his food and went to sit over to Eri, who was looking at her food in amazement. Izuku cooked marinated tuna steak with glazed sweet chili sauce and fluffy white rice. When everyone took a bite, their whole mouths burst with flavor. Everyone. This is the best food I've ever eaten. Izuku chuckled at thee and looked over at Eri, whose eyes light up with wonder. She was glowing too, but not too bright to blind everyone. Within the next 5 minutes, everyone finished their food and asked for seconds, thirds, and fourths. By the next hour, everyone was stuffed with Izuku's delicious food. They all thanked him, and the crew offered to clean up the dishes as a proper thank you, which he accepted since he wanted to relax until they arrive. For the next few hours, Izuku and Ko have been relaxing, enjoying the ocean breeze. During this time, Tuya and Shoto bonded after so long without seeing their other sibling while sharing some stories of their lives. Spinner and Twice were playing poker with dried fish as poker chips. Kana, Rumi, and Himiko were sparring while using blunt blades, but Rumi was just using her legs to fight. Izuku and Eri remained sitting on their chair while spacing out. Izuku was thinking of how he could make Eri smile, while Eri was thinking of candy apples, but their thoughts were cut off by the comms coming online with the captain declaring, "Captain, comms land who?" This brought the attention of everyone as they went over to railing to gaze upon the island. The island itself was beautiful to see, and the town just added to its beauty. This is because it didn't have big buildings littered everywhere blocking the view of the old castle that was in the back on of the town on a second island. The ship docked into the harbor where a man in their 50s stood. He was wearing shorts and an Hawaiian shirt with a bucket hat. He had a bushy beard with soulful eyes. Once the ship was safely secured, a bridge was lowered to allow for the passengers to get off the ship. The first to get off was Izuku and Ko, followed by Class 1A and the crew carrying their luggage. The bushy-bearded guy approached them. "Ah, you've made it. Izuku. Good afternoon, sir." "Good afternoon. I'm the mayor of the island and I wanted to personally meet you all." "Izuku, we are honored. I am Izuku Midoriya. This is my daughter Eri and the rest of my family." The rest introduced themselves, and he didn't seem fazed when the former league introduced themselves, which they found odd. The class also introduced themselves along with the crew, who were finished with unloading the luggage. "It's great to meet you all. I am Takamura Mura." "Tuya, you don't seem that alarmed to see former villains here. Aren't you a little concerned?" "Mura, not really. The principal of UA explained the situation and told me you will help out if something were to go wrong, so I'm not really worried you might try something. Plus, I believe in second chances, and I can see you guys really want to live normal lives outside of villainy." "Tenko, that's unexpected." "Mura, I know. Anyway, please follow me to the buses that will lead you to where you are staying. It's quite the trip." They followed him to 2 buses that had the roof off, so they could enjoy the late afternoon sun. Izuku made clones to move everyone's luggage in the buses and took his seat with the rest, and surprisingly the mayor rode with them to the headquarters. "Tenko, so, how fair is this headquarters?" "Mura, who it's just in the center of the island, so it will be easier for the students to get to places they might be needed." "Spinner, smart." "Mura, I know." There was a silence afterwards. The only sound being made was from the engine of the bus, but Izuku was kinda curious about the mayor because he had a scar peeking out of his shirt near the shoulder. "Izuku, Mura, sorry to ask, but where did you get that scar?" "Mura, oh, this old thing, I got it when I was a bit younger and it's an interesting story really." "Twice, you comfortable telling us this story?" "Mura, I don't really mind. Well, when I was around 17 years old, I used to be a delinquent here on the island. I used to do some graffiti work and vandalizing building just because I could. I would always get away with because of my cork black birds. It allows me to segment my body into hundreds of birds, and the best part is I could see through the eyes of each bird. Rumi. No wonder you got away with it, you could see them coming before they see you. Mora. Yeah, I was a nightmare for the former mayor at the time. I was always causing trouble for the townspeople, but they somehow still accepted me for who I was because at the time I lost my parents during fire that started at the old castle. At the time I didn't know who started the fire, so I couldn't do anything to avenge them, so to try to drown out the pain I started causing trouble. Kana. Sorry for your loss. Mora. Thanks. Anyway, at some point I became sloppy, leading to the mayor catching me and us talking in his office. He talked to me about my parents and told me they were able to catch the guy and send him to prison on the mainland. The guy is currently serving 10 years for arson and 2 counts of murder for 15 years. Himiko. At least the guy is being punished. Mora. Yup, after he told me that I was relieved that my parents' murderer was arrested, but then I was worried what the mayor was going to do to me. Surprisingly, he let me go if I helped him out in his office from time to time, which I accepted. During the times I helped him out, he would teach me how being the mayor was actually a fun job. He got to help the people of the island with the tiniest things. Once time we were called in to rescue a kitten stuck in a tree that gave me that scar you saw. The little thing had a quirk that made its claws the size of lions and it hurt like hell. Twice, ouch. Mora. Ouch indeed. Over the years of working with the mayor, we developed a father-son relationship. The island people I helped couldn't help but make me feel like I'm part of one big family, and that made me want to protect them all with my life if I have to. I used my quirk to keep an eye on everyone to make sure they all are safe and if they need a hand. This went on for a few more years until the old mayor had to retire because of old age, and the island people voted for me as their new mayor. When they did, I made sure to keep everyone as safe as possible, and I still am, but I wouldn't mind some help from some young heroes in the making. Tenko. No wonder you believe in second chances. Mora. I do, and I hope you guys help keep everyone safe if something were to happen. After a few minutes of driving, they made it to the HQ they would be staying at. It was a modern-looking Japanese house that had rooms that could accommodate for 30 people, but there was also a second house which was a lot smaller than the other but still had a lot of rooms. Mora, here we are, and if you're wondering about the second house, that will be you for you and your family. Izuku. Really? Mora. Yeah, since the students will be on duty for the rest of the week, I found it better for them to have their own space to work without civilians getting in the way. Himiko. That makes sense. The mayor showed them around the place so they understood the layout. It had the basic necessities they would need for their stay. He did the same with the class, but theirs was different because of the phones that littered the main hall. Once he was sure everyone was familiarized with the layout, he went to say his goodbyes to the class and Izuku. Mora. Well, I hope you all protect this town like it was you own. Class 1A, we will, sir. Mora. And I hope you and your family enjoy your stay, Mr. Midoriya. Izuku, we will, sir. Mora presented his hand for a handshake, which Izuku shook happily. Blackbird copied. Mora. Well, I'll be leaving ya. You guys have tomorrow to start your first day. Izuku. Before you leave, sir, do you mind if I do something that will help protect the island while we're here? Mora. And what would that be? Izuku. I'm just going to create a barrier around the island. The barrier itself will alert me if something or someone unknown enters its range and won't let them in unless I will it. Mora. What about the people of the island that would require leave the island? Izuku. Don't worry, the barrier would save their life signature and allow them to leave and come back as they wish, and if they bring someone new, the barrier will detach if they are a threat and keep them out. Mora. That's actually a good idea. Alright, you can create this barrier of yours. Izuku. Thanks, now please step back a bit. Izuku moved forward a bit and raised his right hand up and started to chant an incantation. Izuku. Silken net of black and white 22 bridges, 66 crowning sash. Footprints, distant thunder, pointed peaks, revolving grounds, nightly prostrations, sea of clouds, the pale ranks of troops, complete the grand circle and surpass the heavens. In the palm of Izuku's hand a white sphere of energy formed. It developed ring after ring until in total there were 66 rings that orbited the sphere. Izuku, impenetrabilis obis. The ball of energy shot out of his hand and soared high in the sky. Everyone watched as it reached about 500 meters before the clouds until it exploded like a fire word. Then the energy started to send out 66 threads that embedded themselves around the ocean around the sea. Once they were secure, the threads emitted a light that wove each other until it fully sealed itself like a curtain. After a while, it turned translucent but was still visible. Izuku, that should do it. Mura. Impressive. Well, I'm done for the night. See you guys around. Mura left with the class heading back in while Izuku and the rest stayed outside to discuss some stuff. Izuku. So, what are we doing first tomorrow? Himiko. Sightseeing. It's better to know the island before we do anything too exciting. Tuya, she has a point. Izuku. Sightseeing it is, well, let's head inside and eat. They went back inside and reheated the leftover tuna they brought and ate. They had some small talk that discussed where to explore first. After their dinner, they went to their rooms to sleep. Eri stayed with Izuku because she's still not used to sleeping alone. Kana joined them and sandwiched Eri in the middle. They went to sleep within a few minutes, but around 2 in the morning Izuku heard their door open, which made him go on protection mode. Izuku whisper, "Who's there?" The stranger reveled themselves to be Rumi in her nightwear. She was wearing some carrot-themed PJ pants and a sports bra. Rumi, whisper, "You got room for one more?" Izuku looked down and saw Eri sleeping on his chest and Kana wrapped around his right arm. She looked back at Rumi with a sleepy smile. Izuku whisper, "There is, hop on in." Rumi silently made her way to them and got in under the blankets. She scooted over to him and let him wrap his other arm around her, which made her blush. Rumi whisper, "Thanks, it's hard to sleep where you're not used to." Izuku whisper, "I know the feeling." Rumi whisper, "Good night/morning Izuku." Rumi whisper, "Night/morning Rumi." They both went to sleep without a problem afterwards. Enjoying the heat they all produced, and that made Eri nuzzle deeper into his chest. Vestige world. Izuku woke up on a couch in the living of his father's house. He stood up and moved outside where he could hear someone moving about. He made it outside to see his father in some gardening gear tending to a bonsai tree. He was carefully cutting the leaves to make sure it looks presentable. Izuku. Hey Dad. Mugen stopped just a millimeter from cutting another leaf and looked over to Izuku. Mugen. Izuku. It's good to see you. He put away the shears he was using and walked over to his son and gave him a hug. Forgetting his gear had dirt on it, but Izuku accepted the hug nonetheless. Mugen. How's it been? Izuku. Been doing good. Saved the former league and now they are a part of my odd family. Mugen. I know and thank you for that, at least they'll be living somewhat normal lives. Izuku. Yeah, and by the way, you're now a grandfather. Mugen. I know that too and promise me you'll keep her safe. Izuku. Already ahead of you, no one's hurting my snowball. Mugen. Good. Izuku. Anyway, could you tell me why I'm here again? Mugen. Well, I wanted to warn you that something's coming over to the island. Izuku. Is it dangerous? Mugen. To you, no, but to the townspeople it might be a problem. Izuku. How many we taking? Mugen. Don't know how many, but there is one that is somehow familiar to me. I'm not sure when they'll arrive, but be ready for anything. Izuku. I will, Dad. Mugen. I know you will. Izuku starts to fade again, indicating that he was waking up. Izuku. Looks like I'm waking up. Mugen. It seems so. Izuku. Yeah, I'll see you later if something new happens. Mugen. Take care, son. Izuku fully faded away, leaving Mugen to stare at where his son stood. He looked over to the doorway of his house and saw the 7 vestiges standing there, but there was something new to them. Parts of them started to reveal skin and clothes. The parts that were showing was around the arms and legs with parts of the body. If you looked closely, you could see parts of their faces were starting to manifest. Mugen. Looks like we'll meet a lot sooner than expected, brother. Back to reality. Izuku woke up around 6 in the morning. He looked down to see Eri curled up in a ball on his chest. Kana and Rumi were on either side of his arms, sleeping peacefully. Izuku. I need to get up and make breakfast for everyone. He slowly phased through the floor, careful not to wake anyone. Eri slowly lowed down to where he was asleep. Rumi and Kana could feel Izuku slip through them, so they grabbed the next best thing, which was Eri, and held her gently. He phased out of the floor and looked back at the 3. They looked so comfortable, so to remember this, he pulled out his phone and took several pictures to remember this moment. Izuku, I need to frame these. He quietly walked out of the room and made his way to the kitchen to start cooking. He moved to the fridge and took out the necessary ingredient and got to work. The smell of breakfast being made woke up the rest of the family and made their way to the kitchen to see Izuku making a healthy breakfast that will fuel them for the day until lunch. Izuku, I'm just about finished, you guys just sit at the table. They moved over to the table and sat down. After a few minutes, plates full of food floated to their table with Izuku not far behind. The breakfast he made was breakfast rice. It had cooked rice, eggs, sliced green onions, and soy sauce. There was also cups of cinnamon tea to help wash everything down. They thanked him for the food and dug in. The first bite they took exploded their taste buds. Everyone except Izuku. So good! They inhaled their breakfast and asked for seconds. Izuku just sweat dropped at their behavior, but he did give them seconds. A few minutes of cooking later, they were stuffed, meaning Izuku had to wash the dishes. Once done, he moved back to the table and addressed them. Izuku, okay, everyone get dressed so we can go exploring. Tenko, yeah, we're going. Tuya, grumpy much. Tenko, it's too early. Himiko, not a morning person? Tenko, who would be waking up and being forced out of your bed against your will? How uncivilized. Spinner, you make it sound like it's against the rules. Tenko, I'm just saying I'd rather stay in bed than to walk around getting more tired. Rumi, I thought Izuku's training helped with your stamina? Kana, I think he's just lazy. Tuya, he is. Tenko, Hey. Izuku, come on guys, the sooner we know this island, the sooner we could do other stuff. They moved to their bedrooms and changed. Izuku had to ask Kana and Rumi to dress up Eri, which they gladly did. They all wear shorts and shirts that allowed air to flow. They all wore sun hats and carried around bags in case they need to buy something. Izuku, okay, let's get a move on. They exited the house and set out to explore. They first moved into town to get a map that helped them gauge their surroundings. They walked around enjoying the sights and would occasionally see Class 1 helping the people there, even if it was the smallest thing they would help them. When they reached the market, Izuku looked around and bought ingredients for lunch and dinner. They passed by an ice cream shop, so they bought some. They moved up to the north where the ruined castle stood. The bridge leading to it was submerged by the ocean because of high tide. Kana, I've read about that castle a while back. Rumi, what's it about? Kana, it belonged to an old feudal lord that fled from Europe because of some crimes they committed. They brought along some slaves that would soon build that castle, which he stayed in for a few decades. Tuya, I wonder if there's some antiques hidden there? Kana, probably. After a few decades, the Japanese imperial lord found them and executed them for trespassing. They left the castle as is, and throughout the years it withered away. Spinner, and you want to go in there? Kana, you can't blame me for being interested in history. Izuku, we'll come back tomorrow when we've familiarized ourselves with the island. They were about to leave, but something moved from the bushes close to them. Curious, Izuku checked to see if they are friend or enemy. 𝓎𝓔𝓈, gender male, condition, nervous, health normal, blood type, O, occupation, child, affiliation, Nabu Island, quirk. Cell activation allows the user to activate the cells in their body or another person's body through touch. 𝓎𝓔𝓈, gender female, condition, anxious, health normal, blood type, O, occupation, child, affiliation, Nabu Island, quirk. Hologram allows the user to create holograms of anything they wish, with the largest ones being able to be spotted from a great distance away. Izuku, come out you two, I know you're there. The two in the bushes shivered a bit before revealing themselves. The boy named Katsuma wore blue overalls with a yellow sling backpack, light blue sandals and a sun hat. The girl named Mahoro wore a pink sun dress with white sandals and a sun hat. Izuku, care to explain why are you out here at the edge of the island? Mahoro, this is our territory and you are allowed to be here. Katsuma, Mahoro, that's rude. Tenko, territory you say, you a party of 2 against a party of 9. How you want stand a chance? That seemed to spook them a bit, which made Tuya smack Tenko upside the head. Tenko, hey, Tuya, you're scarring them crusty. Tenko, they challenged us to I'm trying so my dominance. Spinner, they're kids. Twice, and you're an adult that uses video game terms to describe stuff. Tenko, 'cause it's cool. Himiko, sure it is. Tenko just pouted, making them chuckled at him. While they were talking, Mahoro and Katsuma tried to tiptoe out of there, but were caught by Izuku using his psionics, making them unable to move. Izuku, we still not down talking. Mahoro, let us go. Mahoro used her quirk that created a giant praying mantis that went to strike them. Izuku make a move to dodge because he knew it was fake, but the rest dodged with Eri hiding behind him while subconsciously activating ultimate defense, which wrapped her up in a black cocoon. The mantis strike Izuku, but it just phased through him. Izuku, that hologram won't work. Mahoro, how do you know that? Izuku, a hunch. Now could you deactivate it so we can talk? Mahoro didn't have a choice but to deactivate it, and once she did, Izuku released them from his hold. Mahoro got in front of Katsuma and made sure they wouldn't try anything. Izuku, don't worry, we won't do anything to you too. Mahoro, how do we know you won't? Izuku gestured to Eri, who was out of her cocoon but still hid behind Izuku. Izuku, I have my daughter with me, so why would I attack kids? They looked over to Eri, which made her a bit uncomfortable, but she did manage to give out a small wave. That seemed to ease her worries a bit, but she still kept on guard. Mahoro, okay, you won't hurt us, but why are you here? Izuku, I asked you that first. Mahoro, just answer the question. Izuku, fine. I'm Izuku Midoriya and my hero name is Omni. This is Eri, my daughter, and the rest are my odd family. The two looked them all up and down before sighing and relaxing a bit. Mahoro, you could have told us that first before threatening to steal our territory. 𝓢𝓨 is the one who made the threat. Tenko, I just wanted to show my dominance over them for challenging me over their territory. Himiko, which is bed, no threatening kids. The three just bickered with each other. Izuku looked back at the two and asked them again. Izuku, so why are you two here so far from town? Aren't you supposed to be with your parents? Katsuma, oh, our dad is back on the mainland for work. He's been gone for a month now. Izuku, did he say when he'll be back? Katsuma, no yet. He just said that he'll be back as soon as possible, but it's been 2 months already. Izuku, that's concerning. So do you two live alone? Mahoro, kinda, our neighbor checks up on us from time to time. Izuku, I see. Well, you want us to walk you back cause it's getting darks. Mahoro, I still don't trust you guys, but we'll accept, but we're watching you. Izuku, I understand, let's go. They all walked back to town while talking on the way. Tuya and Himiko were still making fun of Tenko for using video game terms. Twice and Spinner were talking about different kinds of fish they licked to eat. Rumi and Kana were discussing what happened this morning, and Izuku was walking quietly with Eri holding his hand, but he could feel Katsuma and Mahoro's eyes on him. Wanting to ask a question, so he turned to them. Izuku, want to ask me something? Mahoro, aren't you a bit young to have a kid, especially a kid that's around 5 years old? She eyed Eri a bit, which made her float up to Izuku's shoulders to try and hide from the gaze. Izuku, I adopted her after I rescued her from a bad place. She's shy around new people, so please be patient with her. Mahoro, who's sorry about that? Didn't mean to be rude. Izuku, it's fine, just be mindful of others. It was Katsuma's turn to ask. Katsuma, if you don't mind me asking, but what is your quirk if you're already a hero so early? Izuku, I can't exactly tell you what it is, but think of it as a permanent copy quirk. Katsuma, that's so cool. No wonder you're already a hero while my quirk is just activating cells. Izuku, it's a great quirk, you know, perfect for being a doctor. Katsuma, but I don't really want to be a doctor, our dad is already one, what I want is to be a hero. Izuku, you can still be a hero but not on the front lines, you can heal the heroes that come in after a big battle making you their hero. Katsuma, really? Izuku, yeah, listen, it doesn't matter if you have a quirk or not. That won't stop you from fulfilling your dreams. Whether being a hero or something else, you just need to work hard and you'll get there. Katsuma, I never thought about that. Mahoro, that's what I kept on telling you. What do you mean you never thought about that? Katsuma, he just explained it better. Mahoro, keep telling yourself that. Izuku, Mahoro, do you want to be a hero? Mahoro, not really, but if I did, I'd want to be a rescue hero. Izuku, and you'd be a great one because of your hologram quirk. You'd be able to alert emergency services to trapped civilians. Mahoro, I know, but I'm still not sure if I want to be a hero. Izuku, it's up to you if you want to be, no need to think too much of it. They arrived in town with Mahoro directing them to their house. It was a small but comfortable house fit for a family of 4. Mahoro, this is the place, and thanks for walking us here. Izuku, no problem, but I got an offer for you too. Katsuma, what is it? Izuku, you guys want to join us for a day at the beach tomorrow? Kastuma, really? Izuku, yeah, plus Eri needs some friends instead of us old guys. Tenko, I'm not old. Tuya, you're 21. Tenko, which isn't old. Tuya, it is to us Gramps. Tenko started to chase Tuya around and try to dust him, but due to their training, they were evenly matched in speed. They blitzed around with one dodging and the other attacking. Mahoro and Katsuma watched in awe of how fast they are. Izuku, so you want to join us tomorrow? Mahoro, you're gonna have to ask our neighbor first because we tell him first before we go anywhere. Izuku, alright, could you bring him over? Katsuma, sure. They walked next door and knocked on the door, and a few seconds later, Mura came out, which surprised them. They lead him over and he greeted them. Mura, I see you've met Mahoro and Katsuma. Izuku, yeah, we found them north of the island near the old castle. Mura, Sai, of course they'd be there. Anyway, what can I do for you? Izuku, I was wondering if you'd allow them to come with us to the beach tomorrow. Mura, I don't see a problem with that if they agree that they can go with you guys. He looked over to the two and asked them. Katsuma, sure. Mahoro, it's not like we have better things to do. Mura, well, there you have it. Izuku, cool, we'll come pick you guys up at 10, so be ready. Mahoro and Katsuma, okay. Mura, now you two go eat your dinner and get some sleep. They said their goodbyes and went inside their house. Mura, it's a good thing they met you when they did. It's been a while since they've acted like children. Izuku, yeah, but can you tell me why is their father taking so long to get back? Mura, I'm not sure either. I'm assuming work is keeping him there since his quirk is the same as Katsuma. Izuku, I see. I'll call Nizu and see if Nizu can find something on their father. Mura, I'd appreciate that. I'll leave you people. Good night. Izuku, good night. Mura walked back to his house with Izuku and Ko doing the same. Along the way, Izuku called Nizu to ask him to look into Mr. Shimano. Izuku, hey uncle. Nizu, call nephew, is everything okay? Izuku, not necessarily, just called to ask you to look into a Mr. Shimano. Nizu, call any particular reason? Izuku, it's just he's been gone for work for over a month now and hasn't called back to his family, so I wanted you to look into why. Nizu, call, I see. I'll tell you what I find tomorrow. Izuku, thanks, good night uncle. Nizu, call, good night nephew. He hanged up and continued walking home with the rest, and when they got there he got to work on cooking dinner. He made katsudon, which was his favorite and apparently Eri's. They all ate their fill with Spinner washing the dishes before they all turning in for the night. Rumi joined Izuku, Eri and Kana again, which they didn't mind since all of them produce a lot of body heat that makes sleeping more comfortable. They slept until 6 a.m. again, with Izuku waking up to make breakfast for everyone again. Once everyone ate their breakfast and packed what they would need for the beach, they set out to meet up with Mahoro and Katsuma. Along the way they would see Class 1A doing their duty as stand-in pro heroes. They even saw Shoto entertain some children because their balloon flew away. Tuya, they're really taking this seriously. Twice, yeah, but this is only child's play. Spinner, they aren't ready for the real world, but they will sooner or later. They arrived at the Shimano and found Mahoro and Katsuma already packed and ready to go. Mahoro, what took you so long? Izuku, sorry, had to cook some food for when lunch comes around. Katsuma, what did you make? Izuku, you'll see when we eat. Tuya, come on already or else Krusty over here will become even paler. Tenko, you enjoy making fun of me, don't you? Tuya, yup. Tenko only cited. Since they started living with Izuku, they've been acting more of a family, with Tuya being the annoying cousin to Tenko. They walked for about 10 minutes until they reached the beach, where they found a bunch of people already there enjoying themselves. They looked for a clear spot to set up a big umbrella and blankets Izuku made. Once that was done, they went over to the changing rooms to change into their swimwear. Izuku was wearing swim shorts with palm trees on it and a shirt with the buttons undone, letting his muscle chest to be exposed. Eri was wearing a onesie with apples printed on it. The onesie covered most of her scars because she was still uncomfortable letting people see them except her papa. Kana, Rumi, and Himiko wore bikinis to tease Izuku a bit, and if someone else were to look in their direction, Izuku would release his fearful presence to make them back off. Tenko, Tuya, Twice and Spinner wore something similar to what Izuku wore, with the difference being the color scheme. Katsuma wore swim shorts similar to Izuku, and Mahoro wore the same thing as Aries, with the difference being that hers has a toto. Izuku. Alright, it's time to have fun, but remember to come back when lunchtime rolls around. Many of them went their separate ways to do beach activities. Tuya was in the sea surfing and he was a natural at it, doing tricks and stuff. Spinner went scuba diving because he wanted to see the world below the sea. Twice was making a sand sculpture that was in the shape of a mermaid. Rumi and Kana were playing a one-on-one beach volleyball, and they were landing powerful shots that could hurt anyone that wasn't them. Tenko decided to take a nap while sun tanning, while Himiko was using sunscreen to write something to Tenko's chest so when he wakes up he'd look ridiculous. Mahoro and Katsuma were building sandcastles while Eri was sitting next to Izuku while in the shade of the umbrella. Izuku. Eri, you want to go for a swim? Eri. But I don't know how to swim. Izuku. I could teach you if you'd like. Eri. I'd like that, but I'm still not comfortable with people seeing my scars. Izuku. Don't think too much of it. If they try to judge you, I'll burying them where they stand. Eri. Want they arrest you? Izuku, only if they find out. Eri. Okay papa, let's go. Izuku stood up and took off his shirt, revealing his muscular body but also the scars all over him, especially the brand. He moved over to the sea with Eri walking beside him. Along the way people were staring at Izuku and wondering where he got all those scars, but some recognize him as the pro hero Omni, so they waved at him, which he waved back. Once they made it close to the sea, he created a life jacket just in case and put it on Eri and securing it. Izuku. Okay. Now follow my steps and you'll be swimming in no time. Izuku was waist deep in the water and was holding on to Eri, who was floating on the water. He instructed her to flatten out her body so she could remain floating, then she should try to slowly rock her arms back and forth to adjust her direction. Izuku. Alright, now slowly kick your feet to get some momentum going. She did as instructed and felt herself started to move forward. Izuku had let go of her but stayed close by if she needed to step in, but for now it didn't look like it.
Eri. Papa. I'm swimming.
Izuku. I can see that, Snowball, good job. They kept going for a few more minutes with Izuku showing her different way to swim. The people watching found this adorable, and some of the women thought that he would be a good husband for them, but one glare from Kana and Rumi made them back off. After a few hours of fun, it was finally lunchtime, with all of them gathered around their spot. Izuku brought out the basket they brought with them and took out their lunch. It was copycat steak and shake Frisco melt, French onion meatball sub, Monte Cristo sandwich, and carne asada torta. He made multiple sandwiches in case someone wanted extras. They enjoyed the sandwiches, especially Mahoro and Katsuma, because these were the best sandwiches they've ever eaten. A few minutes of eating and they were stuffed. They lounged around enjoying the afternoon sun. Katsuma. This day was nice. Mahoro, yeah. Rumi. But there's still more to do tomorrow. Izuku. Like what? Rumi. Our rematch, remember? Izuku. Oh yeah, almost forgot, but I'll need to make a separate island so we can go all out. Rumi. Good idea, don't want to destroy the island. Mahoro. Can we come watch? Izuku. Sure. But you'll be staying with them to stay safe. Mahoro. Okay. Izuku. I'll have to warn the mayor beforehand, so he doesn't think there was an attack. Mura. There's no need. They turned to the voice to see Mura walking along the sand in his own swimwear. Mura. You can have you rematch, but make sure it doesn't damage the island.
Rumi. No promises.
Izuku. Don't worry, the barrier is indestructible, so you don't have to worry. Mura. Good, well I'll see you people around. He walks off to leave them so they could enjoy the rest of the remaining day. They would talk about random stuff until it was dark, so they had to go home. They dropped Mahoro and Katsuma off at the home and made their way back to the house. But when they arrived, Izuku received a call from Nizu. Izuku. Uncle, you found something? Nizu, call I have. Mr. Shimano is currently in a hospital bed here in Mizutufa Hospital. Izuku. Any reason why? Nizu, call from what he tells me, he was attacked by a group of 4 people and a creature resembling a Nomu. But the concerning part is the main one who attacked him. Izuku. What about him? 𝓎𝓐𝓡 he told me that man somehow stole his quirk. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, you're kidding. 𝓎𝓐𝓡, I'm not, and we've checked Mr. Shimano is currently quirkless. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, so I have to look out for this guy if he appears. 𝓎𝓐𝓡, correct. Will you be able to handle it? 𝓢𝓐𝓡, I will. Besides, Dad told me that something is coming to the island and my best guess is that man with his crew. But I wouldn't know why he's coming over here. 𝓎𝓐𝓡, there's a chance he might come for Mr. Shimano's son's quirk because it is a universal one that works on all blood types. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, that would make sense. I'll keep an eye on his kids until their father comes back. 𝓎𝓐𝓡, which will be soon because I had Inko heal him. He'll be as good as new when he gets back. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, that's good. Well, I'll talk to you later, uncle. 𝓎𝓐𝓡, you too. Good night, nephew. He hung up and looked back at the group. They looked at him with a questionable gaze since they could hear what they were talking about. Tenko, something's coming over here? 𝓢𝓐𝓡, yeah, someone who can also take quirks. Rumi, I thought you were the last one that can do that. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, it seems like there's another. Tenko, I think I know who's coming over here.
𝓤𝓐𝓡, 𝓙𝓤𝓡𝓣.
Tenko, his name is Nine. He was a sickly man that father's doctor gave him a weakened version of All for One. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, any reason why he'd do that? Tenko, I'm not sure really. I just know that his original quirk would cause his cells to degenerate and any regeneration quirk wouldn't work. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, that's why he needs a cell activation quirk from 𝓎𝓡. He stole a similar quirk from Mr. Shimano, but I'm guessing it's not the one he needed. Kana, so when are they arriving? 𝓢𝓐𝓡, not sure, but it might be any day now. Twice. So we have to be ready for anything. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, yeah, but it's nothing we can't handle. Rumi, but we should inform the mayor and tell him to prepare for an attack if it comes. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, we'll have the class protect the townsfolk while we defeat them. Himiko, so that's our plan. Sounds simple enough. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, all right, let's eat and get some slept because me and Rumi have a rematch that's long overdue. Rumi, hell yeah. They ate the dinner 𝓢𝓐𝓡 made, which was an Egyptian traditional dinner. It had rice-stuffed vegetables and grape leaves, hummus, falafel, shawarma, kebab, and kofta. To them, it was always a new experience when 𝓢𝓐𝓡 cooked. After dinner, they thanked him before washing up and going to bed. The morning they woke up, 𝓢𝓐𝓡 was already done with breakfast, so they ate their fill, but 𝓢𝓐𝓡 and Rumi ate a little less than everyone else because they knew it would cause discomfort when they start the fight. During their breakfast, 𝓢𝓐𝓡 informed the mayor to be ready because of a potential attack on the island and warned the class to be on guard. Now that everything was sorted, they made their way to the Shimano siblings so they could start the fight. 𝓢𝓐𝓡 and Rumi were wearing sports wear that would adapt to how they fought. 𝓢𝓐𝓡 was wearing gym shorts and a tank top while Rumi wore a sports bra with some exercise tights. They arrived at the house and got the kids. Now they had to find a place to fight without destroying the island. Tuya, where did you think you'd fight? 𝓢𝓐𝓡, I was thinking of creating an island a few meters away from the mainland. Mahoro, create an island, no way you could do that. Eri, I've heard he even dropped a meteor from space. 𝓎𝓡, no way. Kana, it's true, I've seen it firsthand how big it was. Tenko, everyone saw it, I just find it ridiculous you would do such a thing. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, I was training. Twice. By dropping a meteor. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, it's still training. They walked for around 30 minutes before arriving at the east side of the island. There was only an open field here that had a view of the town. Tuya, so, how are you doing this? 𝓢𝓐𝓡, like this. 𝓢𝓐𝓡 walked towards the cliff that overlooked the ocean. He brought up both hands in front of him and released a ridiculous amount of power that blew strong winds around him, nearly blowing away Mahoro and 𝓎𝓡, while the rest were unaffected because of their training. Even Eri stood tall watching her papa do what people only hoped to achieve. 500 meters from the mainland and outside the barrier, the sea started to shake because of something emerging, causing a mini earthquake that could be felt throughout the mainland. The sea became shallower by the minute until a plot of land rose from the ocean floor. The size of the land was about half the size of Nabu Island. Mahoro and 𝓎𝓡 were in awe at the spectacle because they've never seen someone do such a thing and not look tired. 𝓢𝓐𝓡, there we go. Mahoro and 𝓎𝓡. That was awesome. Spinner, impressive, but the meteor was cooler. Twice, agreed. Rumi, enough talking. It's time to fight Izuku. She jumped up and made a beeline towards the newly risen island with Izuku following suit. When they reached the barrier, it allowed them to pass without problem. They landed on opposite sides of the island facing each other. Izuku. So, how are we doing this? Rumi. You only use the quirks I have and we're not holding back. If you do, I'll beat the ever-loving shit out of you. Izuku, you sure there's a high chance that we might destroy this island and then some? Rumi. The barrier will protect the mainland, so don't worry about it. Izuku. Okay, but if things go too far, I'm stopping the match. Rumi. Deal. The air was thick with anticipation. Both sides were eyeing each other, waiting for one to make the fist move to start this potentially destructive match. The rest could feel how intense the air was, even though they were behind an indestructible barrier. Kana. This is probably going to be a fight to see. Tuya. Yeah, but who do you think is going to win? Eri, Papa will win. Tenko. Of course you'd choose your father. Twice. She's not wrong though, you've seen how strong Izuku is. Himiko. But Rumi has been training like crazy, and when she enters her second form she becomes 10 times as strong as Prime All Might. Spinner. But that would just amount to maybe 1% of Izuku's full strength. Kana. Let's just watch, maybe she'll have the advantage. Mahoro. How can you guys talk so casually about this fight? Kana. Izuku trained us for 150 years each. Trust us when we say he is the strongest person on this planet. Katsuma. If he trained you guys for that long, then how are you guys still young? Himiko. It's a cool illusion he casts on us that sends us into our minds where he trained us, even Eri got trained. Eri. But only for 15 months, I can fight the top 100 heroes with barely any effort. Twice. Which is impressive for a 5-year-old. Eri. Papa made sure I was ready for anything. But if I can't, then he will protect me. Tenko. You mean we will protect you? Don't forget we're a part of the family. Eri. I know, but I still prefer Papa. Everyone expect Eri. Of course she's a daddy's girl. They looked back to the two. They noticed Izuku's body start to change, with his ears get covered in white fur while stretching to look like Rumi's. The back part of his pants starts to show a bulge but soon reveals a fluffy cotton tail, and finally they notice that his legs were slightly expanding with muscles. Kana. Looks like he'll be fighting her with her own quirks. Tuya. To make it fair, probably. The two rabbits eyed each other with almost animalistic grins slowly creeping on their faces. Within an instant, the two appeared in the middle of the island with legs extended for a frontal leg assault. Both attacks collided, sending an intense shockwave that cracked the island's center and sent out powerful winds that could be felt for miles. The winds collided with the barrier, sending ripples against it, but it still held strong. Spinner. Wow. The two were in a power struggle, with the other trying to get the upper hand. Their grins were still plastered on their faces. Once the winds died down, the two separated, with Rumi already on the offensive with a roundhouse kick that could take a person's head off, but Izuku easily dodged it by ducking under and sent out a loaded right hook aimed at her stomach. Following her instincts, she used the momentum of the kick to lift her body slightly off the ground before doing a barrel roll that managed to evade the hook and grabbed onto the outstretched hand, using it as a springboard to launch herself high up the ground to prepare for an attack. Rumi. Luna fall. She went for an axe kick to the head of Izuku, which would have hit its mark if he didn't catch her leg. The ground beneath him shattered because of the force the axe kick provided. He pulled her closer to him before delivering a jab to her chest that sent her a few feet away. Before she could catch herself, he kneed her in the gut and sent her a few feet up and appeared right above her and sent his own axe kick, sending her plummeting down to earth and smashing in the hard surface of the island, leaving a very deep crater. He remained in the air for a few seconds to see if she's still conscious. He was about to head back down, but a white blur launched out of the crater and delivered a punch to the face that broke his nose and sent him flying to the edge of the island. Rumi on the ground and started to pant a bit, with blood slowly leaking out from her head, but soon vanished because of the regeneration quirk she had. She looked over at Izuku, who was standing with a sideways nose. Izuku. You really pack a punch, he says while feeling the nose move back into place with a snap. Rumi. I know, but it's not enough to put you down for the count. Izuku. It sure aren't. He vanished from her view and appeared behind her with a loaded fist ready to be launched. Rumi, acting quickly, turned her body as fast as possible to block the incoming fist. When he launched the punch, She blocked it, but black lighting with a reddish outline was sparked before she was sent back, feeling the weight of the punch crack a few ribs before they heal over. Rumi, the hell was that? I thought we only using the quirks I have. Izuku, I am using them, it's just that I don't exactly know what that lighting is and why it sparks whenever I fight someone who's at least at my level of strength. Rumi, are you calling me weak? Izuku, what? No, I'm no dash. He was interrupted by thighs grabbing a hold of his head and legs locking him in. He lifted his hands up to feel whose thighs were these, but he accidentally grabbed her butt and gave it a gentle squeeze. Izuku, soft. Rumi, hey. She increased the grip of her hold on his head, making him panic a bit, which she took advantage of by leaning back, forcing his head to lean forward. She placed her hands on the ground and put all her strength into lifting his body and driving him head first into the ground. She released her hold and hopped back a few feet to admire her work. Right now Izuku looked like a plant with the roots growing out of the stem instead of the head of flower. Rumi, that's for copping a feel without asking. The human plant unearthed itself and gave her an apologetic smile. Izuku, sorry about that. I wasn't sure what was on my face. Rumi, sure you didn't. She says sarcastically, which made Izuku blush a bit because he was embarrassed, but she was also blushing because she could still feel his hands on her butt, and the fact he was also a rabbit was not helping her stay and focused on the fight, so she suggested upping the level. Rumi, hey, I think it's time we get serious. Izuku, weren't we already? Rumi, I know you're still holding back while I was barely keeping up, but I want us to really take this fight seriously. Izuku, are you sure? Rumi, as sure as I can be. Izuku, okay then, get ready for a fight of your life. The two stare at each other again, but this time they weren't grinning. The air around them got really heavy and there were white sparks of lighting started to arch around their bodies. Back with the others who watched their warm-up, noticed that the fight is starting to get serious. Twice. Looks like they decided to get serious. Katsuma. Weren't they serious already? Eri. That was only a warm-up. The real fight starts now. The lighting became more erratic with it scotching the ground. Their pupils shrink to an extremely small size and their eyes turn blood red with the scara turning black. Their hair grows even longer, their tails explode with fur and their bodies start to grow fur all over while also growing in size. They both grow manes that looked unnaturally wild. Izuku's mane was much larger compared to Rumi's. Once transformed, the two looked more animal than human with white lighting continuously arching around them. Rumi, wow, this feels. Izuku, exciting. Rumi, yeah, I feel so free. Izuku, like you can do anything. Rumi, exactly. Izuku, this is what happens when you fully transform, the animal within gets to let loose a bit. Rumi, yeah, I'm even more excited for this fight. Izuku, then come at me. Rumi was the first to move with her appearing in front of him with a fist already cocked. He didn't have time to act, so he received a punch to the face that sent him off the island and heading towards the barrier. The force of the punch blew off a chunk of the island into dust. The sea splits with Izuku heading straight for the barrier. He tried to stop himself from colliding with it, but got another punch that sent him plummeting to the bottom of the ocean, creating a whirlpool effect. Rumi, this is amazing. The people watching were in awe of her raw power. They knew she was stronger than before, but they couldn't imagine how strong she's really gotten. Mahoro and Katsuma, cool. Himiko, she's really mastered that form. Spinner, yeah, I don't think any of us can match her if she fought seriously. Tenko, I bet I can take her. Tuya, no, you couldn't. Even with Izuku's training, you wouldn't last for more than a second. Tenko, but every boss has a weakness, I just have to find it. Twice. But not every boss has the same weakness, it may change when they shift into phase 2. Tenko, true, that's why you need to have a contingency plan when that happens. Tuya, and what would that be? Tenko, haven't figured it out yet. Tuya just face palms at Tenko's reply and was about to talk, but he was interrupted by an explosion which made him look back to fight. Izuku bursts out of the water and went flying high up in the sky. Rumi looked at him with a crazed smile since she was enjoying this fight a little too much. Izuku came flying down with an axe kick aimed at her, but she dodged it and went for punch, which almost hit him if he didn't redirect it, and from there the two would start fighting all over the place. Bouncing around by kicking the air using it as a solid platform, their fight was becoming more intense since they were bouncing all over the island and sometimes hitting the barrier, sending ripples through it. Within the barrier, the islanders could only see two white blurs going at it, with neither of them backing down. The fight progressed to the point where they were creating tsunamis because of the shockwaves they produced with each clash. Thunderstorms formed because of the increased humidity and the bioelectricity the two produced. They would sometimes let the lighting strike them and use it as a boost to their attacks. Himiko, this is getting out of control.
Tenko, no kidding.
Twice. But we can't do anything unless you want you but cooked. Spinner. Wait. I think they're about to finish. Spinner pointed back at the two who landed on what was left of the artificial island Izuku created. Both were on opposite ends, panting like dogs that desperately needed water. They had bruises that were already healing. Their clothes were torn in multiple places and they had burn marks because of being struck by lighting multiple times. Izuku. I think it's time we finish this, bunny. Rumi. I couldn't agree more, buddy. The bioelectricity on both of them started to arch violently. Rumi jumped into the air and started spinning like a buzzsaw, while Izuku started to spin like a top, creating a twister. The lighting was intensifying with the smell of ozone increasing. The hair on the watcher's body stood up on end because they knew this was the deciding factor to see which of the two would come out on top. After a few seconds of spinning and twisting, they both launched their final attacks. Rumi descended from the sky and unfurled but still kept a leg to her chest that was covered in a pale moonlight aura, preparing to deliver the mother of all axe kicks.
Rumi, Luna.
Izuku stopped twisting by stomping his left foot on the ground, cracking it, then raised his right leg, which was covered in a golden aura, and prepared to meet her attack with his. Izuku. Solar. Time seemed to slow as the two attacks were mere inches from connecting. The watches all prepared for the resultant effect when the two meet. Izuku/Rumi. Eclipse. The two attacks connected, or they should have, because at the center of the clash a dark moon-looking orb formed in between the two attacks. The moon emitted a dull gray hue before exploding in an intense amount of energy, sending shockwaves everywhere. The island they fought on was rapidly disintegrating. Intense winds blew in every direction while blowing away the sea surrounding them. They were even clearing the thunderstorm they created. When the winds reached the barrier, they slammed into it with extreme force, almost making it feel like the barrier might break at any moment.
𝓍 incredible.
Twice. Guys, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Tenko. What are you seeing? Twice. Their attacks. Spinner. They aren't touching. Tuya. Really? They looked closer and found that their legs weren't even touching. This amazed them, but they were a bit curious of the black lighting that was shotting put of that space between them. Izuku and Rumi were in a stalemate, with neither of them letting up. During the clash, they both looked eyes with each other, with each thinking on how the winner was already decided from the moment they transformed. Izuku. Rumi has really gotten far. Right now, she's the strongest person on Earth and only second to me. She still has more room to grow, but for now, she's proved that she's the strongest woman alive. Rumi. Damn it, I knew that I wouldn't be able to win this when we transformed. He's just too strong for me, and I know damn sure I won't be reaching this level of strength anytime too. Izuku overpowered Rumi by adding more power into his kick, pushing her back and landing the kick in her midsection. There was a loud bang the moment the kick landed, sending one last shockwave before everything started to calm down. When everything cleared up, all that was left of the artificial island was a small patch of land that Izuku and Rumi were on. She was on her back facing the sky while he was standing over her. Izuku. You okay? Rumi. Yeah, but I'm just a little mad I wasn't strong enough to put a dent on you. Izuku. What are you talking about? You're literally the strongest woman on Earth. Stronger than stars and stripes. Rumi. I know, but I still want to get stronger. Izuku. You will. I know you still have room to grow, and I know damn well you'll be on my level someday. Rumi, you're too optimistic, you know that. Izuku. I know, just like to see the bright side of things. Rumi, I guess. Izuku. You need help getting up? Rumi. I'd appreciate it. Izuku lent her his hand, which she took and pulled herself up, but Izuku didn't expect her to jump on him and kiss him passionately. At first her was a bit startled, but soon leaned into the kiss. He could feel the love packed into it and he loved it. It reminded him of how he felt when he first kissed 𝓍𝓏. They separated after a minute of sucking face. Both were blushing but had warm smiles on their faces. Izuku, so, this official? Rumi, I guess it is. Izuku, great, you should talk to 𝓍𝓏 after a while so you'll bond more. Rumi, yeah, but let's get back first. He nodded and held her close before teleporting back to them, and when they arrived the first to talk were Mahoro and Katsuma. Mahoro and Katsuma. That was awesome. Eri, I told you Papa would win. Rumi, you didn't root for me? Eri, but I wanted Papa to win. Rumi just looked at her, then looked at the others and saw them mouth out Daddy's girl, which made her chuckle. She looked back at Eri and gently ruffled her hair and smirked at her. Rumi, well, next time we fight I'll be the one on top. So you better root for me, Kit. Eri, I try. Rumi, I'll take what I can get. So what now? Izuku, hot springs to finish off the day. We jumped to the afternoon to see the Odd family at a local hot springs that the town owned. The previous mayor thought it would be a good idea since it would get colder than usual in the winter months. The hot springs were separated by gender, the boys on one side while the girls were on the other. They were lucky that not many people were using it today, so they had it for themselves. Izuku and the boys were soaking in the nearly boiling water while the girls were relaxing in more body temperature water. While they were soaking, 𝓍𝓏 had a question for Izuku since they got there. 𝓍𝓏, hey Izuku. Izuku, yeah. 𝓍𝓏, why don't you heal your scars? You did it for me but you kept yours. Izuku, I prefer to have them. They remind me of how far I've gone and how much I still need to grow. Plus I'm not really ashamed of my scars. 𝓍𝓏, makes sense. They continued to soak in the water. On the other side the girls heard what her said. Specifically Eri was still a bit self-conscious of her own scars, but hearing that helped with that, allowing her to not feel ashamed as before. When Mahoro saw the scars she was surprised and concerned when she saw them but remembered what Izuku said when he said that he rescued her from a bad place. She just doesn't know how bad the situation was. Rumi, man, my body is killing me. Himiko, well, you were fighting the strongest human on earth, what did you expect? Rumi, I expected to kick his butt, but I got mine handed to me. 𝓍𝓏, but you did hold up your own and made him put in more power into his attacks, that's impressive on its own. Mahoro, yeah, you were like kick, punch and pow, that was the most amazing fight I've ever seen. Rumi, thanks, but I still got a long way to go. They continued to soak for the next hour before heading back home and dropping off Mahoro and Katsuma. Izuku made dinner. They ate and went to bed with Eri, 𝓍𝓏 and Rumi snuggling up to Izuku in their sleep for extra warmth. They slept well that night with nothing disturbing them except the morning birds chirping. When Izuku heard that, he woke up to make breakfast for everyone while reading up on the castle they'll be exploring today. The rest woke up to the smell of breakfast. He plated up for them, which they thanked him for, and they started eating. While eating, 𝓍𝓏 brought up the trip to the island. 𝓍𝓏, so, we bringing Mahoro and Katsuma along to explore the castle? Izuku, we are, but they'll stick close to Eri for extra protection because of the possible instability of the castle. 𝓍𝓏, I see, so what do you think we'll find there? Izuku, I'm not entirely sure. The book about the castle doesn't really talk much about what was inside the castle, only its history. Tenko, maybe we'll find some souvenirs to take home. I'm hoping to find something for my room. 𝓍𝓏, I'm sure there'll be something for everyone since the book said that the castle was left alone after the lord of the place was killed. They continued eating until it was time to go. They wore clothes that were more accustomed to outdoors, but they still provided protection. They left and picked up the Shimano siblings before heading to where they first met. The walk there was peaceful, and they would occasionally see Class 1A patrolling the town, and Shoto would tag along to talk to 𝓍𝓏 and the group before heading back to continue patrolling. It took them around 10 minutes before arriving at the cliff that overlooked the path leading to the castle. The tide was high so that they couldn't take that path. Tenko, how are we getting across? Izuku, do you even have to ask? He opened a warp gate that led to the entrance of the castle. They all walked through and turned back to see the view the castle provided. They could see the main island and the town at the center. It was a beautiful sight to see. 𝓍𝓏, we really need to come back here more often. Twice, agreed. Izuku, let's get moving, we got a castle to explore. They turned back and walked through the entrance. It was old and dusty with fallen debris everywhere. They moved further in with Izuku warning Mahoro and Katsuma to stay close to Eri just in case. They moved from room to room that had different things laying around, either decayed or destroyed, much to Tenko's disappointment. The last room they arrived at was more open than the others. It didn't even have any furniture or debris. The place was just barren. Tenko, great. An empty room. Kana, I think the slaves might have taken everything so they could sell them and start a new life. Tenko, but couldn't they leave something for me? I really wanted something for my room. Tuya, sucks to be you, Krusty. Spinner, don't act like you're not disappointed too. Tuya, I'm not. Twice. You are, it's written all over you face. Tuya, it's not, lay off. Twice, fine. While they were talking, Izuku has been walking around the empty room and listening to his footsteps. Each step he took, he would hear the difference in the sound of the echo. Kana and Rumi took notice of this and asked him what was he doing, but he didn't answer. He continued walking for another minute before he stopped at the center of from. He used X-ray to see what was under him, but something was blocking it, so he kneeled down and stuck his head in the ground. Mahoro, why is he acting like an ostrich? Katsuma, maybe he found something. After he said that, Izuku brought his head out of the ground and looked back at the others with a smile on his face. Izuku, I found something very interesting. Himiko, what is it? Izuku, you'll see for yourself. Eri, could you grab everyone and float a couple of feet off the ground?